back. Welcome back to the Weekly Roundup, the place where we unpack what's been going on in the yoga, wellness, boutique fitness world and what we've been coaching our clients through. Coach Carol and Coach Terri on with me today. I'm Josh. Let's kick it.
Yeah.
We've had some deep conversations this last week. We've all been expressing. I think maybe I'll take us right into that. I had a long conversation yesterday, 2 times with 2 different owners, talking a little bit about some deep level decision making. Example, what the heck am I doing with my business? Where are we going? Am I exiting? Am I keeping it going? Am I expanding? How do you come to that decision? And so that's a hard thing. What I could share and what I shared on the calls yesterday was just some of the best, if not all the best business decisions I've ever made have been maybe totally illogical from a certain viewpoint. You just fucking make them. You just decide. Now you have to be pragmatic in is this realistically possible? Is there actually something that can happen here? But beyond that, they might not seem super rationally awesome. And same thing in reverse. Exiting a couple businesses I've been part of or letting one go that I had a long time ago. It just make it, as soon as the decision was made, I'm done with this. That was it. I didn't worry about the opportunities that I was missing. I didn't worry about, am I capitalizing on the exit I didn't fucking care. You're done. Not done I'm burnt out. I just want to escape and run away and put my head in the sand. Done that's just it. So I would point out that some of this decision making on this level, it's like an instinct, it's a inspiration, it's a gut feeling, it's like a core emotional belief thing. That's what you have to get to first, because then the how you figure it out, in my opinion. Terri, you're laughing because I already know where this is going.
I'm not going to go there today. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And I think what you said is you do have to process through it. It's okay, shouldn't I, all those kind of things. And then I think, and I did this, I was at an on-site last week and the owner had to make some tough decisions. And this often happens when we go to an on-site, right? We're there and we can be shit disturbers. I mean, that's part of what we do. We go in and we kind of upset the status quo. Just the fact that we're coming in, you've got someone coming in, can be a little anxiety producing for some people, or a little, and it's always a good thing. It's always very interesting to see what comes out of those. And oftentimes we're just the one that comes in and we can see with that clear set of eyes and ask those questions. And oftentimes the owners maybe consciously or maybe unconsciously are yeah, I've known this and I'm not quite sure how to navigate it. And by being on the ground, and we can have some deeper conversations. And I feel that when you have those tough, and there was a very tough decision that needed to be made, as soon as we talked through it and the owner really sat with it and came back and then said, yes, this is what I'm going to do, immediately she felt better. Yeah. Just the relief of, yes, she still had to do the thing, right? Figure out the strategy to do the thing. But just the fact that she had made the decision gave her clarity and release. And she had been struggling with sick and inflammation and all these other things. And she also physically immediately started feeling better. Because oftentimes I see, Carol, you're nodding your head. Yeah. It's when we're really in it, we don't even realize sometimes the impact on our bodies. And oftentimes it's our bodies telling us to do something. Okay, I have to say this, passing out at the altar right before you say I do. I mean, that's I couldn't resist.
It was a sign.
It was a sign. It was a sign.
Your body has no yoga 101. No, I don't know, 101. 205, whatever. Your body has no mechanism of lying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Your mind will lie to you all day, every day. It has every tool possible. It's actively conspiring to lie to you towards comfort always. Your body has no mechanism of lying whatsoever. It will tell you exactly what the fucking problem is accurately every time. The problem is mind-body connection. We don't attach the two.
Yeah. And the ultimate is passing out is an actual defense mechanism. It
Yes,
really
it
is.
is. Yeah.
It's the ultimate defense mechanism. So
Fight, flight, fawn. That's
yeah,
just full fawn. It's just like, I'm going to sleep.
yeah. Anyway, so going back to, so it was just having the clarity, and yes, it was going to be a difficult thing that needed to be done. But as I said, just having that clarity of working through it and talking through it with someone really helped her guide to that decision, and asking, and I said to her, and this is again, if those of you listening that's ever worked with a business coach, this is like one of the most, in my opinion, and in my personal experience, this is one of the most important parts of having a coach, is having that someone from outside your organization to be able to come in, whether it's in person or even on, like we do in Zoom, with that fresh set of eyes and asking those hard questions, and just sometimes just straight up saying, look, as a professional business coach, as a professional, I have to tell you whatever, boom. And that can be really empowering for an owner to hear, because it's in some way, I think it's oftentimes we look for validation for our feelings, and validation, are we making the right decision, particularly when it's a hard decision. And just having someone in there saying, this is the hard truth, is like, okay, yes, I know I'm on the right path. Carol, I see you doing this a lot. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
what's your experience with that?
Well, what's coming up for me are those hard decisions. Like, I think it helps sometimes to look at it from the lens of, okay, if I do nothing in 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, what does it look like? Am I happy that I did nothing? Or like, what
Mm,
does it look like if I made a decision? Like, specific to selling the studio or exiting in a way, I think that like looking far in the future, like 5 years from now, where do I want to be? Is it still in the business? And I think that will give you some clarity, you know? And like you said, once you make a decision, the how, it doesn't matter the how, like you'll figure it out, like Josh said. But like we need to get clear on where we stand. I think sometimes the owners just sort of in the swampiness of ownership, and they can't like really pull up a level and see like, where do I want to be? Where do I want to
mm,
go? Um, and the other part of that's coming up for me is specific to exiting the business. I'm that person that always thought, okay, I'm going to do this first, and then I know I'm going to have this job, and if I exit this job, I'm going to do this. When I sold the studio, I didn't really know. And that is a scary place for somebody like type A, like me. So I could also see that like that would be the the counterpoint of this is like, if it is the question of what comes next might be stopping you, if that's what's stopping you from making a decision that really you want to make, don't let it do that. Like the universe will only open up for you once you make that decision.
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I think that's like one of the most powerful pieces of the puzzle, because this sort of spins into another part of some of the conversations related to this that I was having. One of the most common things that's said to us as coaches is, I don't know where I'm going with my studio, or I don't know if I would sell it or whatever. They don't say fear, but they're expressing a fear of exiting the business, whatever the exit is, selling, closing, passing on, whatever, even though that is at least in part a desire that they're considering. Because, and here's what they say, I don't know what I would do. What would I do? If I sold the studio, what would I do? Like their whole identity is tied into their business. And I fucking get it, dude. That is absolutely studio owner life. I was the studio. And then it wasn't. And so like that transition's hard. But Carol, to your point, it's a weird human brain thing that happens where we start fixating on some of the minutia, the little details, the how, or in this case, the like, well, what would I do next? And because that's not there, it like impacts our decision right now around something else that truthfully, objectively, is not related. That's like saying, I'm going to stay in this marriage even though I'm fucking miserable and hate myself and I'm not growing as an individual, because who else would I marry? What would I do by myself? That's a idiotic reason to do it. Sorry if you disagree with me. I'm not trying to marriage counsel here. I'm trying to just come up with the analogy that's like, we wouldn't tell your best friends to be like, yeah, Carol, you are totally unhappy in this situation. It's not good for you. You're unhealthy and you don't like the way that your life is going. And you should just fucking, what else are you going to do? That's not even the conversation. Who cares? It's none of your business. Some of the details of your future are none of your business. That's where it gets confusing, I think.
The
You might need
grade
a
of work.
yeah, you might need a target in front of you. Like, I'm aiming at this, but like this details of how, figure it out as you're going.
Well, and specific to like something that's another big decision, like making a move or hiring or letting go of people, like that's another, if I do nothing, what's going to change? Like, am I happy in that decision? You know?
Mm.
So it's and I tell you, we've talked about this ad nauseum too. Like when there is a cancer in your studio, in your space, and your body is telling you, like, I don't even want to go into my studio because that person is going to be there. Like, and
Yeah.
you're holding on to them for some reason, like you'll be so much better off once you cut it out.
Yeah, and
Is it?
typically, I was just typically in that case, the owners are afraid, particularly oftentimes with teachers. Oh man, I don't want to have to teach. I got to fill all those classes. I got to do this. I got to do that. And every time that they thought that, and then they do take the cancer out, to your analogy, Carol, other people come in and rise up.
Always.
Always, because
Always.
always,
100%.
because if you're ripping the cancer out, guess what? The whole group, the whole studio, the whole team
The whole
is
organism.
healed. The whole organism, because that cancer affects everybody. And the whole team gets better and they'll be relieved, or surprised or relieved, but relieved, and will rise up and say, hey, I can take that shift, or I can do this a little extra for you till you can get somebody in here. And even if they're not able to, if you have to go for a couple of weeks and, be in their studio every day and do all the things, you're still going to be so much better than
I've got a weird
keeping that
I've got a
person
weird
home.
related analogy that I can share. So last year, finally, I've been saving up. I have I have like a mini savings account personally. It's like $10 a month goes into it, And it's because I forget it. It automatically happens. I forget about it. And then like suddenly I'm like, I have $800. Like it's like, oh, surprise, I can buy pants. Like it's not anything too crazy, but I was looking at that, and then I was talking with this naturopathic doctor that I work with here, and she suggested that I get um, stem cells injected because of my hockey injuries to my spine, the number of concussions I've had, the like broken bones on my spinal column that I've had, things like that. And so I did. I got one small treatment of it to like see. I was really like, I don't even want to debate the like, should you do stem cells? It's a wild fucking science. Anyways, long story short, then I broke my ribs like 2 weeks later, biking. And so
Oh,
I was like, I don't think that these did anything. Like, I don't feel like it really made any measurable difference. Maybe this is all horseshit. And I was expecting her to say, well, you got to do like more treatment because it's pretty expensive. Like, you got to do more treatments, you got to do whatever. And instead, she was like, no, it's because you broke your ribs. Like at that moment, that was the healing spot in your body. Everything we did went there to like be actively working on that healing spot. So it probably did something systemically, but it like didn't go to the spots that we were like trying to get it to. the analogy being, you've got the cancer, you've got the pain, you've got the problem in your business. If you don't do anything about it, it's not your choice. Like if something is misaligned or a problem in your business, it will draw, it's like a magnet. It will draw all of the energy to it, and it will therefore take away from opportunity everywhere else. And that's what you're describing, Terri. Then you remove that, or that's gone, and suddenly like, oh, the whole system works better. Surprise, because the opportunity cost of that energy draw is gone.
Yeah.
So related to this, we often have this scenario when we're coaching where we realize an owner is in analysis paralysis.
Yeah. I was just going to leave.
And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, that's a super common human thing to be in, one. But as an entrepreneur, I feel like actually, as you grow as an entrepreneur and as you know more about business and as you understand more and as you learn, you hone different skills, et cetera, it can get much worse. Like an owner who's been going for 10 years in their yoga studio, I would debate very often has more problem of analysis paralysis than someone like who's in year one and they're like a little naive to some of the things. They're just like, we're doing this. And they just, because they don't know what to analyze. So they just don't just do it. And that gives them a little bit of an advantage, actually. So how do you escape analysis paralysis? I would just leave it with this comment too. Psychologically, when you study this type of behavior, one of the explanations is that this is a form of obviously procrastination, which is by extension a form of a couple of things. One is non-clarity, so that's why you're analyzing, but the other is fear. It goes back to this like desire fear element of things, that if I'm analyzing and preparing and not doing, that I'm not risking. And so it feels subconsciously safe. So I'll just keep analyzing indefinitely.
Yeah. Yes, because in that process of analyzing and all that, you're doing something. So it's like, well, I got to get this finished before I can do this.
Yeah.
Right. So it is. I've said this before. There's a great Brian Tracy, Swallow That Frog. It's talking about do that hard thing, make that hard phone call first thing, whatever it is, because if you have something hard that needs to be done, you'll find a million things to put off why you haven't done that thing. And then that's where you get those feelings, like we said, that, you're actually in some manifesting into illness to the point of getting sick because of this. I mean, that's obviously the extreme example. But yet when you take that, again, like going back to my client, as soon as the decision was made, she immediately felt better. And here's the other interesting thing. The next morning, she said, oh my God, I slept the whole night. I had such a good sleep.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right. Because it's like the decision was made. There was no more tossing and turning, waking up at the, 2:00 in the morning kind of thing. Yeah. And now I just had a call with a client, long-term client, been in successful studio, all that stuff, needs to hire. One of the things for her was she's run her organization so lean, which is great. I mean, that's if you can run a lean organization, very efficient. And now she's at the point where it's too lean. It's time to bring in more people, because you get to the point where everybody is at max capacity all the time. That's not necessarily a good place to be when everybody is at max capacity all the time. You always want to have that little room for ebbs and flows. So, she said, and she asked me, why am I procrastinating about this? Why am I down in the weeds about this? And I said, well, we talked about it. And because she said, well, I don't know what they're going to do. I said, don't worry about it. There's plenty of things for them to do. And we started and she's, oh yeah. Because she's run things so lean and done so much herself for so long. I said, you shouldn't be doing this and this. She said, okay. She said, all right. So at the end of the call, it's like, what are you going to do? She said, I'm going to hire those people. And it was just because she was just constantly thinking, what are they going to, I said, trust me, we will find things for them to do. We're talking about desk staff people.
The thing that's coming to mind as you're saying that too And this is where a coach or a mentor or a trusted advisor, let me be really clear on what I'm about to say, not your friend. Friends can't do this. Friends and colleagues cannot do this. You need someone outside of your organization and business and situation. I'll explain why in a second. But
Right.
this is where it can be really helpful, just a sounding board, just to have the conversation you're describing. Carol, like, what the fuck is my problem? You know, I've got a couple people that I go to on occasion, and that's literally how we talk. They're like, Carol, what the fuck is my problem? I'm trying to do this, that. And they just like, well, it's this. Or like, what about that? Like, they don't tell me anything. They just reflect things from their perspective. And it's usually they're reflecting something I'm blind to. And then it's like, immediately you do this. The point being, I'm over analyzing what is my front desk going to do? Like, we know as a coach, objectively outside, we're like, holy shit, like infinite things that they could do. Like, you can't even answer that question until you're there because there's so much. So, but the more important detail would be reflecting back, not just the practicalities of don't worry, you'll find something for them to do, but again, what's the fear here? And we might not actually pragmatically coach this way all the time because we're not psychologists, but it is the conversation of having. Like, what you're expressing in that is, I'm scared that I'll hire this person. I won't have enough for them to do, and I'll be paying them. They'll be not productive in my business for the money. I'll feel like I'm not getting the ROI. There'll be a tension between us as humans, and I, as an entrepreneur, will feel like a failure and stupid. That's not safe. So until I know what exactly they're going to do, I can't hire them. But like, then you write that all out and you're like, wait, is that true? Probably not. So the point though being is identify like what the paralysis part is. What am I continually analyzing? And analyzing, one, but two, is the thing I'm continually analyzing in fact the necessary detail for this decision?
Yeah, I like that.
Or is it actually just something else that isn't directly related to this decision? Because you either need a front desk person or you don't.
So
You
you
either
need
want
some,
to expand and have a sales team there, or you don't. Like, or you don't. There's no. It's generally pretty black and white in the studio, actually.
and the thing about front desk too, and the other thing, the issue was as well, definitely adding more classes in the fall, adding schedule change. Well, what if there's, and I said, schedules change. You know, you get a job, particularly a part-time job, and even with a full-time job, schedules can change. So you change the schedule. And if someone's like, I can't work those hours, then you find somebody else who can. Right. So it's like, she's like, oh, yeah. So it's all these little things that were blocking the decision. And Josh, I wanted having the person to talk to, again, not your friends. I've said this
Yeah, let's come
before,
back to that.
is real world example. And I also say, when you said, Carol, when you said, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Dayton, Ohio, coaching with the YC, because it'll be 5 years on July 21st since I actually
Heck
closed
yeah.
on the sale of my studio. Can you believe that? So I was chuckling when you said that. Although I wasn't expecting to be in my attic with a wall unit because of AC that works so because my HVAC crapped out this week, but that's okay. Anyway, when my studio sale fell through, my initial sale of my studio fell through because of this little thing called the pandemic. And I was just, yes, my family was so supportive. And what about this? And what about that? And it was like, they just didn't get it. They just didn't get it. And so I was like, who can I call? And I called Josh. I didn't know him that well at that point. We had talked about me working with him a couple of times, but nothing had really been formalized, but I knew him and respected him. I knew if anybody I knew, he would give me just I knew he would be direct. So I called him up and just, and then basically he said, it was Terri, your studio is only worth what someone's willing to pay for it. And that was like, it was just what I needed to hear, because it gave me clarity to accept a far less offer on my studio because I knew what I wanted to do. And it's like, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's having that person that you can talk to about things like that. So that was absolutely 100% real world.
I like this story, Terri. You could tell the story every roundup if you want.
Okay. I have so many
But
stories.
you know what I'd point out though is maybe I said that to you and you got off the call and were like, fuck that guy. That's wrong. I am going to triple this amount of price. And then you went and did that. I don't know. But I mean, that's the thing about the external viewpoint. What they can offer you is a consideration which lets you get clear. And sometimes clarity comes from it's the thing I needed to hear to understand my situation more objectively and non-emotionally. And sometimes it's I needed to hear the thing that is clearly wrong.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest, at this point in a lot of the entrepreneurial conversations that I'm having about our coaching business and some other things I'm doing, that is a higher frequency occurrence for me. I have to really actively search for someone who is specialized to answer a deep question where they're telling me something that is like actually a surprise or really clarifying, like, no, this is the way you do it. Like, and here's the proof sort of thing. So I'm like, oh shit, okay, I'll follow that path. It's a higher frequency occurrence that I talk to someone. I'm like, no, that's not it. But thank you, because now I can check that off.
Yeah. Cause it gives you clarity. It's like, oh, no, that's not it. So now I can explore the next thing.
Yeah. And that's what happens when you go from being a yoga teacher to an owner. Yoga teacher land, you're talking about studio ownerships. If I had a studio, we do it like this. We're going to build it like that. Like, you come up with these wild ideas, which are cool. They're coming from a good emotional place. I remember one guy phoned me up once and said, I'm just about to open. We're going to charge this for memberships. If someone doesn't use it, we're going to refund their money every month. I'm like, that's interesting. Not sure. Never seen that model. Not sure about the efficacy of that. He never actually opened, so we never got to test it. But like, you get all these ideas, then you become the owner, and all of a sudden the same people that used to have good ideas with you, you're talking to them, and you're like, you are not equipped to actually give me an opinion on this. No shade on you, the person, but like your perspective, understanding what you've learned on the business side of it is not there. So, but thank you. Now you've told me what I'm going to not do. Like, that's clear as well. Why does it have to be someone outside of you? Like, why say that and not your friend? Because I think we turn to our friends often. And I think the two reasons that I would say, and it took me a while to understand this, because my first 3 businesses, I went to my friends first always. I'm not saying you never go to your friends, but like, I went to my friends first always, but then I only went to them. And so I actually had the experience. I had a cleaning business a long time ago, that then when I finally encountered a man who became temporarily a mentor of mine for that business, at first I resisted every single thing he said because it was so different than what all my friends were telling me. And after the fact, once I got smart about it, he was right about all of it. All of it. And so that was an interesting experience to see. Not to say my friends were stupid or something, but the point is, if someone is legitimately your friend, they have some emotional charge in the situation too. And what you're trying to escape is the pure emotional charge around looking at it. You're trying to get to a more objective viewpoint. So it's a disconnection, or we could say space. If I'm so far out of your business, like, I can just look at it objectively and say, like, this is what it looks like to me, like, unless I'm missing something. And so that's where the value lies. So often friends, family, it's like they're very well intentioned. It's not that they have no good advice at all. I'm not saying that, but just they struggle to offer that perspective. And that's what you're trying to get sometimes.
So the precursor to me calling you is exactly that. I'm on the phone with my sister who lives here in Dayton, and she's trying to console me and counsel me. And of course, I'm into my second bottle of wine at this point because, I'm pretty upset that the sale had fallen through. And everything she said was just like, it just was like fanning the flames. And I just completely lost it on the phone. And so she's texting my other sister saying, oh my God, I think I just pushed Terri over the edge. And so I finally calmed down. And the next day, I hear from my siblings, all my siblings, like on the same day, twice a year. Usually it's like Christmas and my birthday, right? We all reach out and, next day, because I was still in Massachusetts at this point, in COVID, on my own, lockdown, all of that stuff. Couldn't go see any of my friends in the area. Each of my siblings called me the next day to check in on me because my sister said, 911, everybody's got to check in with Terri. I'm really worried about her. And that's actually, I think I called you that next day or a couple of days after that. It was just like, I need to talk to somebody outside of my circle. That circle, remember, was it Robert De Niro's circle of trust?
Mm.
But now you're in my circle of trust, Josh. You're definitely in my circle of trust.
You guys are in mine. I mean, it was business related to studio stuff. You guys are phone calls 1 and 2, not in any particular order. What about moving backwards? So I think like analysis paralysis is a common thing that an owner experiences. Another part of these conversations this last week that we were describing before we jumped on today was this sense of moving backwards in a business. And shit, have I ever like, oh my God, this is like my crazy brain hates taking one step backwards. It just, and at the same time, the flip side of that is I so often have this feeling of like, I just want to fucking burn it all down to zero and then start fresh, clean at zero with nothing because now I know what I know. You know what I'm saying? So like both of those are true because like that's not really realistic. But I don't want to go backwards, but also you kind of have to a little bit sometimes. It's like the 2 steps back, 6 steps forward. Maybe Carol, see what this brings up for you. But I find this to be a common conversation and actually more common right now for some reason. This year, we're talking to a lot of owners that are experiencing this, even if they don't word it this way, this tension of like, I feel like I'm going backwards kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's an opportunity. Like it's not the total burn down, right, scenario, but if there's a place where you're kind of having to go back and look at why are you having to go back, one, and like then you could rebuild that portion better potentially, based on your experience going backwards. So I don't know, I could see with being a longtime studio owner and you felt like I thought I was out of having to do this thing, well, maybe it wasn't built correctly in the first place. That could be the opportunity for you there. I don't know. I'm going a little bit back to for somebody who really enjoys or not enjoys. I feel comfortable in analysis paralysis. That's very, very much where I end up living. It also can be a fear of like not doing it right the first time. I want to do it right. It needs to be perfect, but it doesn't have to be perfect. So I had to get rid of that. So maybe that's another opportunity if you're going back and needing to reevaluate something in your business. The good news is you have lessons learned, right? Don't think of a mistake as a learning opportunity. So like if you can flip that and reverse it in your head, then I think that might be a good way to think about it. Like how do I build it better this next time?
Yeah, and also there's that, and I think this is more prevalent when you buy an existing studio, but I think even if you start the studio, because I mean, I know you and your partner started the studio, but you had it for so long as well, we've always done it that way. We hear a lot of that when we go to a non-site. Well, and so and just in questioning, it's like, well, to your point, Carol, things can change. Things do change. I mean, the one constant in life is change. And maybe the way you did something 3 years ago, particularly nowadays with all the AI tools and productivity tools that are out there, that there could be a better or more efficient way to do that. And there's a great, because you guys know I love stories, there's a great analogy for because we've already done it that way. It's like little girl asks mom, Mom, how come you always cut the ends off the roast before cooking it? And mom goes, I don't know. Let's ask grandma. Go to grandma. Grandma, why do you always cut the ends off the roast? Oh, I don't know that. Let's go ask great grandma. Great grandma, why do you always cut the ends off the roast? We're assuming that they got married and had kids really young. I don't know. Let's ask great great granny. Great great granny, how come we always cut the ends off the roast? She says, oh, because my roasting pan was so small and that was the only way they would fit. So sometimes
Meanwhile, everyone's got a dry ass roast for 35 years.
Exactly.
Way longer than that.
Yeah. The point
50 years
being,
of dry
Multiple
roast.
generations.
right. The point being that the way we do something sometimes has absolutely no relevance to what's happening now. So therefore, it's okay. And that's the other thing. It's okay to change things. It's to your point, Carol. It's not necessarily a mistake.
No.
It's, particularly when you start a business or it's like you're starting from scratch. You don't know what you don't know. You think this is a good way to do it. You go out and maybe you find something. Okay, the going back. I like, to go back to the beginning can also give you the opportunity to go much further in the future, because by doing that, maybe you identify things along the way that are holding you back from growing your business. Maybe by doing something this way, it's actually hindering your growth because it's taking so much resources to do, or you're hanging on to things that really don't serve any purpose anymore. That, well, do we really still need to be doing that thing? Carol, did you find any examples of that, or even in your with your clients where it's like, why are you still doing that kind of thing? Those type of moments.
I mean, I can't think of a specific example. No, I know it happens. I know that, like, even through, 19 years of studio ownership, you'd be like, yeah, we really don't need to do it that way anymore. We're always trying to learn and do better, but inevitably there are some things that stick for way longer than you need to. But what's also challenging about that, I find, is like getting the team to go along with it. Once you kind of train them on something, or they've bought into it, like that can be the harder part, is like, now your mind has changed. How do I get everyone else to get on board with that? So yeah, it's I think constant, iterations of processes and making sure that they're the best they can be. That's ultimately going to grow the business and help the team do better things. And this kind of leads into a lot of what I've been working on with clients, is the org chart, which doesn't necessarily have to be like it's helpful to see the visual of where people sit, and also really define their roles and tasks within those roles. And of course, we talk about their KPIs as well. But like, I find that, I don't know, having the visual a lot of times for the studio owner makes such a big difference and helps them to then see where they can ascend to in the business. So we're going back to like that initial like big question, what do I, should I do this? Should I do that? Sometimes the organizational structure can help you, perhaps, because
Totally.
Oh, absolutely,
maybe
100%.
yeah. So anyway, that's what's coming up for me.
Yeah, same
No,
thing.
it's true. If you
Lots
get that,
of
because there's the org chart, there's 3 levels of an org chart. First off, if you're listening to this and we haven't been coaching with you on studio operating systems, because that is one of our phases that we coach to, I'm not saying go build 3 org charts. But there are 3 ways that you could do it that kind of make it tricky in the beginning. There's what's currently happening in your business right now. So you're like literally just putting the seats on the board and drawing the picture of here's what is the truth today, which very often looks like owner, teacher, front desk, kind of a manager, cleaning person, and then marketing, sales, finance, legal, manager of this, blah, 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 owner. It's just owner, it's just you. And then there's a couple of things. Then there's the, what would my dream org chart look like? Like, what am I trying to build here? And that one's hard because the truth is you kind of need to create it to have an intention or a target that you're aiming at, but it almost never plays out exactly how you map it. Like you might need to switch practically. And then the in between is what we usually end up at. It's like, here's what is happening, here's where I'm trying to go, but like within the next 1 year. But the point being, if you look at it from those three different angles, you get a good understanding zoomed out again of like, what is this business and what do I want it to be quickly and what could it be? And to your point, Carol, that can often help clarity with like, or that inspiration of like, what should I do? You're like, well, if it was like this, I'd be fucking pumped. Like, let's do that. I can get inspired and excited about that. And that might be enough. Or you're like, even if it was perfect like that, I don't care. But doing it, you'd find that clarity either way.
The other thing that helps to do all this org chart stuff, and again, even in the beginning, if you're doing everything, like all the seats except for, you got a front desk or not, a lot of studios, and here's another thing we absolutely coach to those of you who have not coached with us and thinking about opening a studio, it's like hire front desk, 100% is one of the best things you can do. Even if you think,
Sorry, Terri. Let's just say this one more time. Please hire front desk people at your yoga studio immediately. If you don't, like, just hire one.
just do it.
Thank you. That's it. I just had to
That's
throw
it.
it in there.
It's what it will, every single client that I have worked with, where finally they're like, yes, let's hire. They're all like, why did I wait so long to hire front desk? Every single one. And it's one job that you hire them and you train them, and they're not just checking people in the class. They are salespeople. They pay for themselves. They pay for themselves very, very quickly. Forgot where I was going with it. Oh, but the thing about defining it is also then when you're the owner and you're doing a lot of things, is it also can help you inform, where do I need to hire next? Which, particularly
Yeah.
like if you're really good at certain things and not so good at other things, and like, okay, these things I'm still good. I'm going to start putting these, I'm going to hire somebody that can do these things for me next. Because either I don't have the best skill for it, or it's something I don't enjoy doing. And that way I'm going to get somebody in that role. So that's the other thing, is it really can help you inform where to hire next. And again, if you don't
Well,
have front desk, hire front desk.
yeah. If you don't know and you don't want to go build a whole org chart and you're not coaching with us on that specific subject matter right now, but you don't have front desk, that's your first hire.
Yep.
This is a, like borderline controversial statement because technically, you're going to have enough teachers to cover the schedule that you run when you open up. So that kind of has to happen, which might be like you and your partner, or you and one other teacher, you and two teachers. But the counterintuitive thing is the very next hire after the initial minimal skeleton crew of teachers that you need is front desk. And most studios, it's like year 5 before they hire front desk. I'm telling you, the impact potential of that is exponential if you do it early and appropriately. The org chart thing and like where to hire next, here's how you know that this would be helpful for you, or if you're new and you're like, why, that sounds stupid, I'll just hire. If you don't do this, if you don't like kind of map it out a little bit, because it won't be perfect, it's a moving document, it's a living document, whatever, then the common scenario, and maybe if you're listening to this, you've experienced it, is then you hire someone because you start to get burnt out and pissed off. So then the quality of your hire is really just who was available and I don't hate, or who like was in my business, or who likes yoga. Like you didn't really strategize the hire very often. And then the stuff that person does, they very often get the title of studio manager, but they're not managing anything. They're just taking on a bunch of completely at random, all over the place administrative things that are all the things that you're like, I just don't want to do this. Like, I just hate this. I'm just giving it away. Or conversely, they can just do it. They're like, oh, I'll do the schedule. And you're like, okay. And so that's not necessarily terrible. And you can certainly adjust that. The problem then becomes anything that doesn't happen to a quality that you want, there's tension between you and that person. Because, like, if I was to hire Carol in that way, Carol doesn't know her specific objective, neither do I. And then I'm like, well, this stuff isn't happening. And then I feel like, well, Carol's not doing a good job. Even though Carol might be doing a great job here, here, and here, and just shit over here because it's not, like, Carol doesn't
Defined.
even want to do those things. I just dump them on her. Or there's no system around it. And then if Carol quits or elopes to Bali or fucking whatever, she's gone. How do I replace that? Like, job advertisement. Someone who's very much like Carol. Photo. List of attributes that Carol has and tasks that she was doing. That's an impossible hire. So then you become very attached to that individual person in the business, which is not a safe place operationally. Then you're like,
So
oh, I
true.
can't, I can't lose Carol because Carol. Like, that's not a good reason, actually.
Yeah.
Sorry, Carol, go ahead.
When I'm going through the org chart with clients, it's like if you have somebody who is the studio manager and they're doing just a hodgepodge of all these different things, I'm like, if you lose them, you have to find a unicorn that can do all those same things. And it might not be a skill set that, you're going to find right off the bat. So that's why we need to define like this seat, okay, they were doing this thing and they were doing that thing, and that might be four different seats in the org chart.
Yeah.
So you may need one person to do that. You might need two, three, four. It depends. It's just, yeah. So anyway, that's how I explained it to studio owners. Like, you're
And
probably not going to
that's,
find that unicorn again.
yeah, it's a unicorn. The other thing too, we coach towards, we talk about is when you start to do this, to your point, Carol, is you got Carol doing all these things, Terri doing all these things, they're all this hodgepodge, is then we're trying to create, when we start with the org chart, we're trying to create the org chart for the person. It's like, no, you
Yeah.
take
No.
you take the people out of it. We're not saying they're not important. We're just saying define the chart, define the seat. So if you have, like, to Carol's point, you have someone they doing some social media, they do the teacher scheduling, they do the email marketing, they do all that stuff. Those are all, to your point, Carol, very different jobs, seats on seats. Define the seat. And then it's like, okay, Carol sits in this seat, and this seat.
Yeah.
So then, to Carol's point, if somebody goes, it's like, okay, this is the skill set. So yeah, I might have to have two people to do this because I probably not going to find someone that has the skill set for all four of those things. And then when also you start to do this, the side benefit of it is it helps you be more strategic in how you hire and what you're hiring for, as opposed to, hey, we need a person at a yoga studio to help with this. No, it's like, we need a person, we're hiring for this specific thing. This is the goal. These are the metrics for success. These are the things you're going to be doing. So that makes it more strategic when you're going out to hire people as well.
There's more. What's coming up for me, Terry, as you're saying that, is like, I think owners think, okay, when I'm going to hire a person in my business, they just think about the person that I want as like where most of their energetic thought goes. And then they think this is the job title. And then they want to write a job description. And that's not incorrect. It's just that it's distracting in the beginning. It's not clear. It's hard to get a job description perfect. And so where a job description is helpful is more in line with like the contractual agreement when you hire someone around what is or isn't within their purview. And you have a document that then you can keep up to date so that we have this objective outside of us as humans thing to reference. That's where a job description is helpful. Terri, we have a contract and a job description. Which is this? this is clearly in that purview, what gives? Or you say, Josh, you're asking me to do this thing. This is not anywhere near my job description. It's not in my purview. Let's discuss that. And so that's where that's helpful. But from a like, how do I grow my business standpoint, even writing a job description, like it's so much effort and you can't quite get it right. So the point being, practically, what do you do? There's a little more to it than this, but you could simplify it down and just ask some really simple questions like, what do I either need to like, how will my business grow or expand? And so if that's the objective, what's the main problem I'm trying to solve in a hire? And those are the seats that you create first. Example being, we're saying you got to hire front desk. It's because the first thing that you need is when you are not there, someone has to be 100% on the ball of customer service and sales, actively engaging clients in every studio. Because if you don't, then it'll fall to the teacher. But the teacher's job, yes, they need to engage people, but that's not their primary objective. Their primary objective is teach fucking banger classes so that people want to come back again. Their objective is giving the experience and retention sort of thing. Or their, yeah. So you guys tell me what you think, but like, I think you could ask the simple question. If I want to hire someone for something, like what problem specific are they going to solve? And therefore they would be responsible for 1, 2, 3. Like it's keep it that simple. Because then if that's clear, and then you tell me, Josh, I want to hire you for this, and then I do that, everyone's going to be happy. That's it. If that's not clear, it gets really, really difficult.
Yeah.
This brings up for me going backwards a little bit in our conversation, but related to this as well. The flip side, we were talking about 2 steps back, 6 steps forward, whatever. The flip side of all this is I define this problem that I'm trying to solve, and then the in that questioning, I have to ask the real question, like, is this the priority?
Mm.
And so sometimes what happens is an owner or a manager feels a certain way in a business. So then we make an assumption. I feel not good about the situation, but I'm not clear on what that's the symptom. I'm not clear on what the actual problem is. So then I'm going to hire because I think I can hire my way out of this feeling. But I can't if I don't hire to solve the problem. And maybe the problem isn't a hire. Maybe it's a system that you need. Maybe it's a focus. This goes back to the changing things. Like the second you say, we've done it this way because it's always the way we've done it, you're dead. Like that's just not how the world and business works, right? But the flip side is change just for the sake of change, or change is distraction because you just want to feel like you're doing something. That doesn't do anything either. So hiring or changing something, I'm just relating them here in my mind as you guys are describing this. It's like, what am I trying to accomplish, or what's the problem that I'm trying to solve? 1, 2, is this the most important thing for me to be focused on doing right now? Right now being like 90-day timeline, you know? If you can get it whittled down to that, then you tend to get really good at building a business, because that changes obviously, but
Yeah. And if by going those 2 steps back, let's say in a 90-day window, and you are exponentially better, then it, to Carol's point, it's not bad. It's a good thing. It's not a
yeah,
failure. It's not a failure to go back and redo something or revise something or try something new. It's like you said, Carol, they're not really mistakes per se. They're learning opportunities.
yeah.
What can I
You
learn
can't,
from that?
if
And
you
that's,
psychologically approach it the right way, like
yeah,
you don't ever, it's not a win-lose. It's not binary in a
yeah.
business. It's a, you win, like you win and succeed at something, or you learn something. That's it. The key to it is, can you be open enough as a person to actually learn? Which generally everyone is, but like over time that becomes hard because there's a lot of different lessons to be learned in a business.
Well, one of the questions I will ask, I ask all the time when a studio owner says something or something comes up and they do something, I always say, what is the lesson you learned from this? Right? What is the thing? What is, like the owner I was working with last week, it's like, okay, made the decision. And then later on, I said, okay, now I'm going to ask you the question, what have you learned from this whole process? So that's another good thing, is when you're going back and looking. And again, this is where you have to be able to have self-reflection, to be able to ask those tough questions of yourself and not beat yourself up. It just is like, yeah, I could have done this. If I had done it this way instead, I feel the outcome would have been this. It's like, great. So now we know you're not going to do this again, kind of thing. Right. And for this owner, it was like, I now know I need to really stick with my boundaries. I need to stay, have very clear boundaries. And when something comes up, I have to confront it head on. Not in like, bear charging into the lion's den or that kind of thing, but just not kind of sidestep it. Because then the cancer grows. And then, that
Well,
kind of
that's the
thing.
thing. In the situation you're describing, like they're not going to go through that scenario again, or likely that's not necessarily true. Everyone's got their own path, but like
Right.
it's unlikely that they go through a scenario as intensely as that again, because they'll identify it faster.
Yes.
You know, you just
And not,
you're like, I recognize this. This is the
yeah.
part of running a studio. I think, man, studios are like the best entrepreneurial testing ground. Like, just side note, if you run a studio and you're like, I think I want to sell it because I'm just like, this chapter of my life is just closing. Like, no good or bad, nothing. Just like, this chapter's closing. I want a new chapter, but I don't know what's in the new chapter, so I can't sell it. What would I do? Dude, if you've run a studio for 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, we got some 30, pushing 30 studio owners, you have a skill set that no one fucking understands. Like, it is, you can do all sorts of shit. You've acquired more skills than you think. Anyways, because of experiences like this, like you're just able
Yeah.
to identify things and whatever. It's not moving backwards as long as you don't calibrate to getting stuck there. Like, if suddenly you're like, I have to run the front desk for the next 3 months, and that's situationally necessary for one reason or another, that's not a problem and is not moving backwards if it's because it's for a specific purpose and you will not stay there. That's not the same as saying, well, I'm going to fire all my front desk people to save money and I'll just run the front desk and it's going to completely depend on me again. That doesn't make sense. So I think that's the subtlety of like, am I moving backwards or not? You can go back and do something or be in your business in a different way that you thought you were done with if it's for a specific outcome. It has to be right now, or I'm learning something, or I'm rebuilding something because now I know better, and it's not going to be like this forever. Then no problem.
If this is bringing up for me, Josh, that even if everything's going well and great, it's still not a bad idea to go back and relook at things. Right. Yeah. If you are an owner that does have front desk and haven't really worked the front desk in a while, go work a shift. If somebody needs a sub, go in and sub that and see firsthand what is happening and see the processes you put in place. And maybe it was like, oh, we could improve this. That's another good thing about going in and doing some of these things, is just like, it's just always a good idea just to check in with, even like I said, even when the studio's humming, everything's running smoothly and perfectly, not a bad thing to go check it out anyway, to see if there's anything that going on, because we said, it's not the portion of the iceberg that the Titanic saw that was the issue. It was what the iceberg underneath that sank the Titanic. So, that's not a bad idea to go in and just check in
Terri,
operationally.
we all know that it was actually the secretly placed explosives in the hull that sank it to get the insurance money that sunk the Titanic, not even the iceberg.
I thought there's probably a much better conspiracy theory we could come up with that.
Well,
Did
my
that.
son taught me this term I'm using all the time now, rage baiting. I hadn't
Rage.
really heard it before. It's when you're like, we used to say troll online, but it's when you're
Yeah.
like people are purposefully just
Yes.
creating conflict, just egging someone on. Yeah. The one thing that, to spin off what you just said to kind of close us out for today, maybe a little bit, and Carol, let's leave it with your final thoughts on this, is the moving backwards part, or the like, go plug yourself into the business to kind of keep your finger on the pulse of that area of the business, is not only a good idea to keep your finger on the pulse and to understand it and to optimize and to see what's happening with your team, but also this is a deliberate leadership technique.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always necessarily possible, but if you're at a moment in your business where you're like, you come to the realization that you need your team specifically to do better, that like they are the thing that is suppressing production, suppressing efficiency, whatever, and that's an area you're going to focus, then you'll come to the conclusion someone needs to lead them. That's you, by the way. You can't just blanket hire for that necessarily. And then one of the things with leading is go get dirty.
Yeah.
Go clean the toilet, go run the front desk, go teach the crazy yoga class. Now, this is situational, depends on, like, if you're not a yoga teacher but you own a yoga studio, then of course you can't go teach the yoga class, right? So there's some exceptions to this. But generally it's like, go do the thing, work alongside them, but you have to do it like for a little while, and then the idea is work loudly. It's not a bragging thing, but it's like, find an excuse to make everyone know about the work that you've done. Example, you go in and you're like, okay, for the next month, I'm going to clean the bathroom every Tuesday for an hour. And then you do that. And the first time you like clean the drain and you send a photo in your Slack channel to everyone, you're like, man, we have got to have a regular schedule thing for this hair. Don't worry, I dealt with it completely. And look how clean this fucking shower is. I'm so proud of myself. Ha 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 ha. Also, by the way, every Tuesday we're cleaning the drain. Or here's how that happens. Or whatever. I'm picking up doing the phone calls that I've hired someone else to, but I'm going to do some of them. And then you just, at the end of every week for 4 weeks, be like, I've been jumping in, doing phone calls, talking to people. Here's what I learned and experienced. That's the working loudly part, that it's like, you're inclusive, talking to everyone about the thing that's happening, but you're also telling them that you're doing something that they themselves might do. And that can be really helpful and inspiring, especially respect building, if you're trying to really lead a team. So go do not all of the stuff every day, all the time, but like, go strategically get in the mud and then do it loudly. Sing while you're in the mud.
Yeah, I love that, Josh. I think that there is a point at which sometimes the owners are seen as like they don't understand what's really going on. They haven't been doing this job, they haven't been in the trenches for a while. And so I think so then whenever there's a change that comes up, I've seen this in coaching where the team will almost revolt. Like, well, you don't work the desk, you don't understand what it's like. That's not going to work for this, that, and the other reason. And so that's a really tough place to be in. But I think that doing what Josh is saying is actually brilliant, because then you can be like, actually, I have been there, I am doing the thing. The improvements I think we could all make are this, and then you don't get that, like, now, you're so far out of it, the owner doesn't even know. So I think that is a really top-notch leadership idea. Yeah. So,
And you don't have to do this all the time or
mhm.
indefinitely. It's like,
Right.
you might need to do it at a higher intensity temporarily to like get going with the team
Mhm.
and sort of get that respect going. And then periodically you jump in or whatever. But yeah, it doesn't have to be, it's not to say like permanently make yourself the cleaner. Remember,
No,
that's
no.
silly at some point. Yeah. Well,
We unpacked it.
there we go. And there's your roundup for this week. Man. That's a wrap on this week's weekly roundup. Tune in every Friday right here on Facebook, or you can subscribe to Studio Cult TV. I don't know if you noticed, Studio Cult is what you're looking for. That's our sort of media brand of this stuff. We're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, or probably wherever you're listening from. And excited to see you next week.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Bye.
Peace.
Bye.